Gamers are such a threat that the government is coming for you. Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle, and no, I'm not making that up. Regulate toxic online video games the same as social media, because playing video games online is so detrimental to the human spirit, the human connection to individuals. They need to be regulated, and if you're like me, if you're a libertarian at heart, you know that regulation is the same as admitting defeat. Like, you know what? We lost. We can't handle this. It's got to be regulated. You threw up your hands, you gave up, and you let Big Daddy government decide what's best for you because you're a goddamn coward. Let's go through this article, see what it has to say. Before we do, hit that subscribe button. I'm a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day, and I think this is something that gamers are going to want to be interested. So make sure to hit that button because there'll probably be some follow-ups to this. After years of paralysis, the US and European Union have been moving to regulate social platforms. The EU is taking tentative steps to enforce the new Digital Services Act, which came into effect for all online platforms February 17th. Some states in the US are trying to control how platforms do content moderation, and the Supreme Court is now considering the constitutionality of this regulatory foray. Now, if the Supreme Court is considering the constitutionality of this regulatory foray, it makes me wonder, where is free speech gone? Because last I checked, free speech was just part of our inalienable rights, and you cannot tell me that something as subjective as toxic online video games has any bearing on free speech. Nothing that anyone says or does in a video game is likely an actual crime. This is just them flexing their censorship muscles, saying, look what we can do. We can come after the largest industry in the world. So, of course, the largest industry in the world will have the largest fan base in the world, the largest player base, the gamers themselves. This lumps everyone that's ever played video games in together. You get a few bad apples in there who, when you've got an entire industry that is the largest industry in the world, of course you're going to have some individuals playing those games that have done bad things. You probably got a few people playing video games who have committed a murder or a rape or something like that. But does that mean that's indicative of all gamers? No, not when you have as massive a sample size as the gaming industry has. This is absolute bunk out the gate. Meanwhile, the US Senate is edging closer to approving legislation that would compel online platforms to introduce additional child safety measures. Oh, think of the children. It's always think of the children. It's always child safety measures. This isn't for the kids. They use that flowery language because, well, how can any good consenting adult who wants the best for the younger generation, for those that are going to inherit the earth after them, of course they want good child safety measures. Well, that is the ultimate tool for your oppression. Say, hey, if you don't bow and throw away your rights, your children are going to be unsafe, and you don't want that, do ya? That is emotional blackmail to the nth degree, and it's goddamn disgusting. But these efforts to rein in social media overlook the gargantuan online gaming industry. Video games comprise the largest entertainment industry by far, grossing almost $200 billion in revenue in 2022. Told you, I wasn't making it up. More than the music and film industries combined. Today, online gaming sites offer far more than entertainment. I mean, to be fair, when you say online gaming sites, what do you mean? Like, are you talking about like Kotaku, the Mary Sue? Because all they give us is entertainment. They certainly don't give us facts. Or are you referring to like games that you play online? Which again, no, they're really only offering entertainment. That's what they're there for. It's a full-on luxury. You can absolutely survive without them. They are social platforms that channel user communication and enable networking and community building. Online games should be part of the regulatory discussion concerning digital platforms, but they seldom are. That's because there should not be regulatory discussions referring to digital platforms to begin with. Now, obviously, within the legal confines of the law, you can't have kiddie porn on websites like Facebook or Twitter for very obvious reasons. But that's already illegal. You're not regulating something that's already illegal. So what you're asking for is an additional regulation on things that aren't actually crimes. That is psychotic. Discussions of harms in gaming historically have focused on fears about the content of the games themselves. However, the social environment of the games is what actually poses significant threats to players' safety and well-being. Exposure to hateful speech is routine, while doxing, exposing someone's private identifying information, and physical threats are also common. That's right. For those of you that played Call of Duty Online back in 2006, 2008 during the glory days, are you okay? Are you fine? Did you ever have anybody actually show up at your house to honor the death threats they gave you in the game? Like, no, that didn't happen. People just naturally talk shit while playing video games. I remember doing it in the living room with my buddies growing up in the 90s. That's when the real shit talk happened. You're playing Smash Bros, or you're playing Mario Brothers, Mario Kart, whatever it be. and you were ripping friendships apart with some of the vile words you were saying on the couch. And then when game time was over and you all watched the new Friday the 13th movie to conk out and go to bed, things were totally fine. It's almost as if that's just how competition in general works. Of acute concern is mounting evidence that extremists and other bad actors take advantage of pre-existing toxic gamer culture to disseminate their hateful ideologies and unleash hate-based harassment. Because anyone that's ever gone to play Spyro the Dragon came out the other end a white fucking supremacist. While players, game makers, and members of civil society are familiar with these problems, many companies and policymakers are only just beginning to address, or in some cases even acknowledge, these issues. That's because it shouldn't be up to them. Believe it or not, people are individuals, and it should be up to each individual to regulate themselves. That's how the world works. You self-police, you do things the proper way, and as long as you're not breaking any law or infringing on the rights of others, then effectively no harm, no foul. Getting your feelings hurt is not damage of the criminal level. You can't send somebody to jail because they hurt your feelings. But that is the future that these individuals want. That is what they want for all of us going forward, is to submit and conform to their disgustingly censored and soft worldview. Everybody at this point just needs to live in a padded room by themselves, effectively in solitary confinement, so that you don't run the risk of accidentally microaggressing on every single other human that you come in contact with a day-to-day life. That is the only way to actually break down what it is they're asking for, because in some way, shape, or form, there's always going to be someone doing something that you don't like, or that would upset you, or that you deem should be censored, despite the fact that the vast majority of things, censorship, is subjective at best. There's very few things that we completely agree are off limits. The vast majority of the things that we completely agree are off limits have been off limits for the majority of human history. Gaming companies and policymakers seem to be operating under a misconception about how the rights to privacy and freedom of speech should apply online. No, there's no misconception. Whatever right you have outside in the real world, you should also have online, because you are still an individual, you are still a human operating in the digital space. Your rights don't just magically go away because you're looking at a goddamn computer screen. The misconception stems from inadequate attention to the human rights on the other side of the equation. No. There is no human rights on the other side. There's two humans, they have the same rights. That's simple. Full stop there. If I say something douchey to you on the internet, you can either say something douchey back, you can turn the other cheek, you can ignore it, it doesn't matter what you do. We are not involved in any sort of crime. We are just talking. We are exercising our free speech. And until violence is called for in a way that it would be criminally defined by the court, alright, this is actual incitement, everything else is pretty a-okay. It's fine. It's good to go. You just don't like that because it hurts your feet, and more importantly, it takes away your control. If people can say whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want, obviously within reason of the utmost extremes, you can't control them, and that control is what you're really after. And you're using video games and gamers in general as a way to exercise that control, because if you can take the largest industry in the world, if you can get that industry by the balls, then there is nothing that you can't control. We see through it. This is not for the safety of the children. This is not to protect people's feelings. This is because you are power-hungry narcissists, and frankly, it should frighten every single goddamn one of you watching this video. That are the victims of extremist harassment and violence. Hate, harassment, and the perpetration of extremist ideologies rooted in hostility towards specific groups stand in direct contradiction to the very notion of human rights. Actually, they don't. Only acting on those are the contradictory of human rights. For example, that's why the KKK can exist. Now, do I like the KKK? Am I a fan of the KKK? No, not particularly. They're a bunch of dumb, uneducated rednecks, and the robes, honestly, not even all that stylish. Like, you really gotta update that look, KKK, because it just comes off very, oh brother, where art thou-y. But either way, they can all congregate as much as they want, as long as they're not actually going out and committing crimes. They have the human rights to do so. Is it scummy? Are they douchebags for hating the blacks? Absolutely. However, we cannot take away their right to assemble and talk about what they want to talk about if they are not actually committing any crimes. You want to prosecute for thought crimes, showing that you do not understand individual freedom and human rights. And that is the most sickening part about all of this, which are premised in the belief that all human beings have equal worth, regardless of their specific characteristics or group membership. In practice, exposure to extremist rhetoric and behavior in games has tangibly and sometimes devastatingly affected victims of harassment, intimidation, and occasionally violence. In the most severe cases, extremist radicalization through gaming inspires actions that violate the individual's right to life. Alright, we're gonna stop here because, again, this is the largest industry in the world. Video games are, without a doubt, the largest industry in the world. So if you do have somebody that goes out and commits a hate crime, and then the law enforcement comes to find out, oh, well, they were playing Crash Bandicoot for the last 3 weeks before they killed that little black boy. It must have been video games that radicalized him. No, obviously there's going to be some crossover with some sick fucks out there and video games, because 99% of the population, I don't know about that much, but a vast majority of the population plays video games, which means the minority that commit crimes of the most heinous nature, whether they be, volatile, racially induced, or whatever, yeah, odds are they also play video games. That's how it works. Hey, guess what? Every serial killer in the world drank water, because humans need water to survive. That doesn't mean drinking water turns you into a serial killer. Correlation and causation are not the same thing, but that's what they're trying to make you think here. And this rhetoric will probably work on people who are completely and utterly retarded. But I'm not even going to go over the rest of this. You see what's going on. I don't even need to show you the entire article for you to look at this and say, yeah, they definitely don't have our best interests at heart. They are absolutely, I can say with confidence, they're doing this to protect us, the citizen. Fuck that. Even if they were, even if we grant them the ultimate benefit of the doubt that they are doing it for the most altruistic reason, that still does not negate the fact that you are an individual, that you have individual human rights, and that you do not need Big Daddy government to come in and step on you to exercise whatever it is that they want because they know better. That goes against the founding of everything involved in our Constitution, our entire way of life. And yes, you could say that there's a much bigger, wider world out there that doesn't have the same constitutional protections, that doesn't have free speech, that doesn't have the Second Amendment, that doesn't have the right to peacefully assemble. And you know what? That is all true. That's why none of them are as good as us here in the US, because at least we've got it right in that regard. Now, is it being trampled on and stepped on in a vast majority of cases right now? Absolutely. That's why there's a culture war going on. That's why it's a culture war that, in my opinion, we're winning. As long as we keep doing what we're doing now and keep fighting back and pushing back, eventually they'll run out of money, or they'll have to give up, or they'll run out of individuals with the ideology that, can maintain this, or better than anything else, they'll just end up aborting their kids so much, they're not going to have a second generation to carry on this culture war, while the rest of us out there having kids willy-nilly. So, yeah, at the end of the day, it's a problem that solves itself as long as we don't let them win in the short term. But those are just my opinions. Let me know yours in the comments down below, or let me know on X, where you can find me at BoltTheWord. And please do subscribe. I am a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day. Not always about video games and government censorship, but by God, the two absolutely seem to go hand in hand lately, don't they? You look at the Sweet Baby Inc. stuff, you look at what's going on with Asmongold, you look at what's going on calling Resident Evil 5 racist, like 14 years after the game came out, or whatever it is, 16 years, and all of a sudden you start seeing the government got their hand in a lot of stuff. But that isn't the only thing I cover, so if you enjoy nerdy news coverage in general, come back, hit that subscribe button, check me out on Instagram at wordsofparadise_Leon, and by all means, become a member for $4.99 a month, join the Discord, get to choose the articles that I cover on a day-to-day basis. It's great fun. Also, discount code VitalIdle, get yourself some money off of a mug or a t-shirt. I'd love to see you repping it on X, and remember, it is all here in the Nerdosphere. This has been Words of Paradise.